welcome.
Le Mans Classic is the most incredible time machine of this formidable race, the 24 Hours of Le Mans. Imagine more than 700 racing cars with models that participated in the 24 Hours of Le Mans, all on track on the long Circuit de la Sarthe. Thousands of club cars, day and night entertainment, exhibitions and much more for the 238,000 visitors to see. There is so much to do, so much to discover during Le Mans Classic that this year, for the first time, the gates of the circuit and paddocks were open from Thursday during this first weekend of July. So buckle up and relive this 2025 edition. Take a trip between 1923, the year of the first edition of the 24 Hours of Le Mans, and the early 2000s. Here we are on the first starting grid of this edition of Le Mans Classic. Shortly before 4 p.m. on Saturday, during the grid walk, the machines from the 62-65 period are lined up on the grid, and everything is getting ready. We're immersed in the magical era of Le Mans Classic, the golden age of the 1960s. It's a living retrospective of the entire history of motorsport, the history of endurance racing. The secret is to be authentic, to provide a real live spectacle, to have activities in the village, to have a real reason to come with concerts in the evening. Almost 100 young children participated in Little Big Mans and really loved this first experience as a budding driver for the 24 Hours of Le Mans. And of course, there's an incredible spectacle on the track as well. 4 GT40s at the front, it's the Ford Ferrari duel all over again. It's just magical being on pole here, especially with the GT40, which is part of the circuit's history. It's magical, so I think I'll enjoy myself during the races. When former F1 driver Felipe Massa gets ready to start the race, we're back in the mid-60s, with a true Le Mans start. Testimonies, literature, or movies might make you think that in the 60s all eyes were on the GT40s and the Ferrari LMs. But it would be too simplistic to stop there, given the enormous variety of makes and models on the track. Like Marcus, for example, a brand founded in 1959 by Jem Marsh and Frank Costin. Mar-Cos.
Our goal is to just finish, like I did in '95, finish Le Mans. That's our goal. Enjoy it, finish, have a good time.
Chris is the son of Jem, the co-founder of the Mar-Cos brand.
My father always loved racing, so he started out racing. When his first car he built was a race car. And of course, when he started Mar-Cos, the way forward was to go racing. And one of the best events in the world is obviously Le Mans.
So coming back to Le Mans is an emotional experience for Chris, but also an opportunity to see extremely rare cars created by his father, like this Going.
As far as we know, there were 7 of them made, and to our knowledge, there are 2 driving today. 95% is made of wood, and it is the original wood from '62, and that actually makes it very stiff.
I come and go, but I always know you can't have eyes up below. If I open my heart, you can't have eyes up below.
Hello to you all. You're the family I was looking for. You run this club. It's almost a museum when you walk around here. What's the theme? The 60s and 70s. We are a club with about 20 members called the CQNV, le club qui n'en veut.
Often when people see us, they say, oh yes, that's right. My father had this car or this caravan, etc. And then they add, you didn't know that era. But I did. And I always grew up with it, and it always seemed normal to me to have my father driving a 504, even though it's 2025 today.
We're just full of smiles. Everyone who participates in the event and comes to visit the campsite is delighted to be able to go back 40 years and relive those moments, which were truly wonderful for everyone.
Vivre effectivement ces moments qui étaient des moments merveilleux pour tout le monde.
The clubs, that's more than 8,000 cars gathered all along the circuit. It's hard to know where to look first, whether it's regional clubs, clubs around one brand, or even specific models. They are all parked near the circuit and on the Bugatti track, which is not used during Le Mans Classic. It's a huge gathering, the likes of which probably exist nowhere else. Passing through the club area, we gently slip into the late 60s and early 70s with the cars from Grid 5 and an unidentified rolling object. Only specialists will recognize this car. It's a WM, the initials of Welter and Meunier, the founders of the brand. This is the zero car, so to speak. It's the one that led to everything that followed and allowed this group of engineers, this racing team, and Gerard Welter and Meunier, of course, to develop the next generation. It's the best symbol of the racing team, and the best way to honor this team was to recreate the very first one. The car you see now is a reconstruction, since the original model no longer exists. We owe it to a group of enthusiasts reviving the legend, as WM would enter Le Mans history in 1988 by breaking the absolute speed record on the Busan Straight, then without chicanes, with a top speed of 407 kilometers an hour. This P70 simply is the great-grandmother of the record-breaking car. The history of Le Mans is full of adventures led by amateurs, but only one has truly left an indelible mark on the race. The only manufacturer driver to win Le Mans as a privateer was Jean Rondeau in 1980. Several of his cars were entered at Le Mans Classic, including the very first of 3 chassis built under the name Inaltera. It's an incredible story. It's a car that was built in 5 months and has finished every 24-hour race it's ever competed in, whether it was Daytona or Le Mans. All 3 cars have finished their 24-hour races each time. That's quite rare for a car built in 5 months. The Rondeau team survived the sudden death of its founder in 1985 and built several models, including Group C cars such as the M382 and M482. Entered at Le Mans Classic this year thanks to the efforts of the Association Jean Rondeau, which is run by passionate former team members. The first thrill was when we brought it back to life, the first time at the Le Vigan circuit, when we put it back on its wheels. I can assure you there were tears and big hugs, because we worked like crazy for 6 months to get it back to this state. And then, of course, when we brought it back to Le Mans, it was yet another big event. It's all emotions, it's nostalgia, but it's positive nostalgia. It reminded us of so many good times from 40 years ago. It brought us even closer together. And new for 2025, on Sunday morning the Group C cars woke up the Le Mans Classic crowd, unfortunately in gloomy weather. But what a pleasure it was to see these endurance beasts from the 1980s race on the long Le Mans circuit again. Cars which undoubtedly have left their mark on the history of the 24 hours of Le Mans. While each of the Le Mans Classic grids features exceptional cars, it's perhaps in the one dedicated to cars from 1966 to 1971 that we find some real gems. Do we have to describe the sublime 312P and 512M models from the Scuderia Ferrari? Machines as beautiful as they were competitive. Now priceless, but at the time, they never managed to win at Le Mans. And for good reason. Their direct rival was the Porsche 917, the first Stuttgart model to win at Le Mans in 1970. There were several 917s on track at Le Mans Classic, such as chassis 029014, victorious at Spa in 1970. It was driven by Brian Redman and Philippe Siffert, Joe Siffert's son. Or Chassis 025, which claimed the podium finish at Montlhéry in 1970. And what about the monstrous V8-powered Lola T70? Especially when it's driven by a 3-time 24 Hours winner.
Gérard, Marcel, hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
How does it feel to return to this circuit after having won the 24 Hours of Le Mans 3 times? How is it to be back during Le Mans Classic?
Well, it's the first time I do Le Mans Classic, and last time I was here, I was racing in the 24 Hours in 2019. But 6 years later, I still know my way around the circuit.
The goals are different too.
It's different, but then again, we might be a bit low on the grid, but we are ready to go and we want to do well.
In the end, isn't the main goal to have fun? And to relieve a little nostalgia?
With these cars, yes. But once we're at the wheel, we're still racing drivers, and we will be for the rest of our lives. We're not competing for the World Championship here, but these are beautiful cars, and I really love them. It really is something extraordinary if you can drive a car like this one. Fessler and Lopez, starting from the back of the grid on Saturday, driving their Lola in its elegant original livery, managed to overtake plenty of other cars during the first 45-minute race. For yes, races at Le Mans Classic last 45 minutes, and each grid competes 3 times over the course of 24 hours. This makes sense, and it's impossible to send more than 700 cars out on the track simultaneously, the oldest of which are 100 years old, and the youngest barely 20. Leafing through the great history book of endurance racing, it's surprising to see how certain periods have been dominated by one manufacturer. Currently it's Ferrari, but to find such another prosperous period for the red team, you have to go back nearly 70 years. An era during which it was not uncommon for racing cars to be destroyed or recycled to make room in the workshops.
This particular body, which was done by Scaglietti in the middle of 1955, when this car finished its Scuderia Ferrari racing, was single.
Imagine if this work by coach builder Sergio Scaglietti had been destroyed.
Well, Ferrari constructed the 121 LM particularly to fight Jaguar and Mercedes in the 1955 very famous Le Mans race. The car is very long, has a 6-cylinder engine with a 4.4-liter capacity. It is meant for very, very high speed.
And it's true that this Ferrari bears some resemblance to this very British racing green machine.
Monsieur Richard Mille, admiring a Jaguar.
Especially this one, my dear Marine. Honestly, it's worth the trip.
Why?
It won. It won Le Mans, and cars that have won Le Mans, most of them are in museums. So to have one like this...
It's quite exceptional from what I understand. So it's a real one.
Of course, there are a couple of cars left, but fewer and fewer, because these cars are now worth so much money that people are hesitant to race them. Imagine if a car like this had an accident. It would be terrible. It would be a sin. But then again, they are driven very well. But anything can happen. It's part of the World Heritage of automobiles and car racing, that's obvious.
So that's why you stopped in front of it.
Oh yes, my dear, it wasn't by chance. XKD 505 is the original chassis number of the Jaguar, which won in 1955. And such a museum piece isn't bestowed upon just any driver.
Yeah, when you stop and think about the value of these cars, and if you did something wrong, yeah, it sometimes keeps me awake at night. So, yeah, thanks again for reminding me.
Andy won Le Mans in a Jaguar XJR9 in 1988, a Group C car that had little in common with the D-Type he drove at Le Mans Classic.
To try to explain the difference, I need to have longer arms. You know, it is absolutely huge difference. to try to summarize the differences. So first, if you look at the tires, so now we have tires maybe this wide, and they're treaded tires, as normal. And then on the XJR9 from 1988, the tires are this wide, and of course they're slick. And then probably the biggest difference is the downforce. So though the cars from the 80s and the 90s, and even in the modern time, the downforce is huge. So the cars are being sucked to the ground. So everything's happening very quickly. You are braking at the last moment, turning, keeping a good speed in the corner. This one is almost completely the opposite. You're very fast on the straight, yes, but you have no downforce. So you have to be careful with braking, and it really is so different. Hard to explain actually how different.
These photographs are crazy. They are from 50 or 60 years ago, in black and white, obviously, but right over there you can see the same scenes in color. That's Le Mans Classic as well.
Because yes, Le Mans Classic is obviously about more than 700 racing cars on track throughout the weekend, but it's also a real experience to be had in the village. There are numerous exhibitions, such as the one dedicated to the advertising vehicles of the Tour de France, which made every child dream, and which today amaze even the youngest. Or these superb vintage motorcycles, to be admired between two vintage activities. And then there's always the races. Even in classic racing there are innovations, such as the increasing use of synthetic fuels in order to reduce the ecological footprint of vintage cars. And there are exhibitions such as the one with incredible LMP prototypes, to be admired in the middle of the paddock. These exhibitions and events don't stop for 24 hours. So sometimes it's good to take a break and treat yourself to a movie. An important new feature this year: on Friday and Saturday evenings, several concerts were organized amidst the club cars. You could even call it a mini Le Mans Classic Festival. The night owls barely noticed the arrival of rain on Saturday evening. However, for the drivers and teams, the end of the night was a real game changer, especially for the open car drivers. And there are many of them at Le Mans Classic. The 24 Hours of Le Mans is a century old, and direct witnesses of the early days are becoming increasingly rare. So to keep the flame alive, there are often family stories to be told, like those of the Leroux family. My grandfather, Gérard Leroux, was a works driver for the automobile brand Deutsche Bonnet, and then for René Bonnet later on. He drove 3 times in the 24 Hours of Le Mans in 59, 60 and 61, and this chassis won the Index of Performance twice. The Index of Performance was a ranking that rewarded cars with the best mechanical efficiency relative to their capabilities. A math formula was designed to balance the odds between small and large engines. It was a kind of ecological ranking, far ahead of its time. But let's stick with family stories a while longer and visit the pre-war paddock. Since the start of this Le Mans Classic visit, we've been talking about automotive heritage and works of art on four wheels. But there is one car that perfectly captures all of this. Surrounded by BMW sports models stands this exceptional 3-litre CSL, known as the Calder BMW, the very first art car in history. 50 years ago, I associated art and speed. And the fruit of that vision is right here before you. This magnificent automobile that I had the pleasure of driving in 1975. It has left its mark on the history of Le Mans, even beyond its beauty. A beauty which is easily perceived by a public not familiar with art. There is no need to be familiar with museums to appreciate this very simple design and its very bold colors. And it was a very competitive car as well. The very first art car in history was born. 19 other BMWs decorated by renowned artists would follow. But Calder's work will forever remain the most legendary of them all.
And then the car came to America, to the Whitney Museum for Expo in 1976 for my grandfather's last exhibition. And then my grandfather passed away. I was 13 years old, and I saw the car for the first time in the museum. And I said to my grandfather, wow, look at that car. Let's start the car. I want to hear the engine.
50 years later, Sandy not only had the opportunity to hear the engine, but also to drive the car on the Le Mans circuit. It's the kind of thing that can only happen at Le Mans Classic. Let's get aboard our space-time machine one last time to arrive at the beginning of this century on the endurance racing legend pre-grid. There we meet the legend, or rather two, the Audi R8 and the man who made this car win everything.
It's the race car, it is the closest to my heart. It has been a very special story, so I'm very happy to see the car running again. The main feeling, it's great that we created in these years a car that at the end is now a legend, especially here in Le Mans. And I think the brand Audi can be proud on that. I'm very proud with my team that we managed to create a car that has been so competitive for such a long period of time, and that it became a legend, which is not coming automatically.
As we approach the current era of the long history of motorsports, we encounter drivers who have driven these cars feeling a bit nostalgic. Like Nicolas Prost. He got back behind the wheel of the Viper he shared with his father Alain 20 years ago in the French Championship. It's the car that took him to his very first pole position. It's as if we were organizing a school reunion 20 years later. Since this morning, I've been living it for real. I'm meeting up with lots of drivers and teams, lots of cars I've raced against. And I think that's quite nice. It's a different time now, but it's nice to see everyone again. And this morning, when I saw the cars driving, I was saying to myself, they did have a beautiful sound back in the day. Since 2002, when Patrick Péter and Richard Mille created Le Mans Classic, the event has continued to grow and reinvent itself, with each year more and more visitors, cars, and amateur and professional drivers. And they all enjoy getting back on track on the long 24-hour circuit.
And I was very happy to be invited to come here. And of course, with the car I drove, this is very nice to drive here in Le Mans.
Going through the chicane, through Indianapolis, the Ford curves. It's reliving history, and that's the real pleasure. Like any enthusiast, I think it's fabulous. It's even unique to see all these grids again.
The track
8.4 miles is about 3 times longer than any track we normally do. 28 turns, which I do not understand, right? It will be a lot of fun.